Q&A.
So what are your plans to make sure that FASA is inclusive to Filipinos with intersecting identities?
For me, I think it would definitely be awareness, because I think most of the time a lot of people feel excluded and it's hard for them to feel included because they feel like other people don't understand what they're going through. So for me, it would probably be awareness to create that safe space, especially at FASA, to make people feel like everyone is welcome and to have, discussion and to just create that safe space for people to talk about where they come from, whatever Filipino background, or even if they're not Filipino, just to create that awareness and that environment where anyone can feel welcome at FASA.
Alright, so one of the things that I really loved when I first came to FASA was it literally was a community, and I loved how that was also the theme. It didn't matter if you're Filipino, like it wasn't a prerequisite to become a member. There wasn't a particular way you had to look or act. Everyone kind of just blended together. And I think a way to keep it inclusive is to kind of underscore the notion that everyone has a different identity, and all of them are important. And like everyone in this room has made up FASA. Everyone's identity is not identical to someone else. And with that said, I think it's, since no one is like the same person, we all respect that, and I don't think that, I think that it's just, I think that's a special thing that FASA has about it, an aspect of FASA, and your question was how to make it inclusive?
Yeah, how to make sure you keep it inclusive.
I think to keep it inclusive, it would just be to maybe have this is just an idea, but like a general meeting about identity. One of the things that I wanted to touch upon for next year if I were political chair would be focusing on identities and stereotypes and stuff like that. So I think educating people about that and just respecting the different backgrounds that we all come from.
What does advocacy mean to you?
Advocacy to me, when I first think about it, I think of change, but that's not necessarily what it has to mean. Advocacy can mean fighting for a certain issue, pushing for change. It may not even mean achieving change, but I think advocacy starts with the baby steps, which would be to identify an issue, gather people to address that issue, and then from there take steps to address it and bring it to the greater Seattle community.
I think advocacy, at least to me, is action, because there are so many issues already that Filipinos and Filipino Americans, they know about it, they're experiencing it right now, and it's one thing to talk about it, this is how I feel, this is the problems that we have, but it's another thing to actually do things about it. So I think for me, advocacy would be action, because it's time to start addressing these things and to start actively trying to make a change instead of always talking about it, because it's nice that we have that discussion, but we've been talking about it for such a long time about how we're treated as a minority and all of these other things. So I think really going out to the community and actively trying to make a difference and trying to reach out to other communities in order to make that greater impact is what advocacy is to me.
Okay. Let's see. There are other nonprofit or student organization resources off and on campus, political or not. What other groups do you hope to bring to FASA that will be beneficial to the members?
Other organizations. So I think one of the things that is expected of the political chair is to kind of reach out to those student organizations, whether it be on campus, off campus. So to do this, I think it would be beneficial to kind of stay connected to like ASU Dub, PISC, ASC, and then maybe from those organizations try and find other ones that may be relevant to whatever you're addressing or whatever is of concern, and find those in the Seattle area.
Can you repeat the question, please?
So the question is, what are other nonprofit or student organization resources off and on campus, political or not? What other groups do you hope to bring to FASA to benefit the members? So she mentioned student organizations as something that would be beneficial to helping FASA do some sort of advocacy. What other organizations do you think of that can help bring advocacy for FASA and make that collective a bigger impact?
Okay, well this may be a bit biased, but definitely the ASU Dub, and especially since I've been a senator this past year, we've had to interact with so many different organizations on and off campus, definitely the legacy groups, and not just student organizations, but I think even clubs that advocate for, different fields in academia, because bringing FASA out there politically doesn't just involve like talking to other legacy groups and those kinds of things, but it also involves, we can also cross those other gaps in order to have an even greater impact on campus and off.
Can I follow up with that?
Yeah.
So, you guys talked about student organizations to make a collective impact, but student organizations are what we call transient populations. You guys come and go because you graduate all the time. Are there other groups that are not student organizations that you're aware about that can make that collective impact, which will be a more steady, sustainable impact, which will be going on for years on? Sorry, that's a rough question.
Definitely for me, like what you said, one main issue with student and on-campus organizations is they're always transitioning from different members, so it's hard to keep that momentum going. So I think definitely off-campus communities like FONS and the Filipino community of Seattle, all these communities that all the members there have been established, they know what they're doing, they're not going to leave, they're not going to, even though there may be new people, they're established and they know what they're doing, and they'll definitely be a good resource because they'll always be there, and they have that history of what FASA's gone through, and even, they're always adding new Filipino members, and even whether or not they're not Filipino, so I think just utilizing that would be really helpful to learn from elders who've been there and who are still here in order to help us transition so that even when one of us isn't political chair anymore, we can still keep that momentum going to ensure that change is still going to happen.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that Danielle said. Like both of you emphasized, like the student organizations on campus are always going to be changing. And it's never always going to be the same group of people, which could be of concern in upholding the same traditions and stuff like that. But I think the best way to kind of counter that would be to reach out to the greater Seattle community. Like she talked about the Filipino community in Seattle, and I think they could be a good resource for us to connect with them and find ways that we could collaborate in which would be beneficial to not only our organization, but the whole Filipino community.
And that concludes the question and answer. Sorry. Thank you.